In Sri Lanka, across the island landscape, in numerous river and stream basins, the nucleus of a vast number of villages is the Vava. And the Vava breathes life to the villager ever since its creation over 2,500 years ago. Sheer human ingenuity built these vast acres of water. Minneria, UDULA is today 17 centuries old and still serves. So does Kantale and the Sea of Parakrama of the medieval era. And 20,000 besides have dampened the dry zone landscape of Sri Lanka, each with its own village community. And for the community, the Vava is more than just an expanse of water. The catchment above, the paddy below, and the homesteads spread amongst gardens of vegetation. All together weave and form a harmonious whole. It is home to the twittering bill and the mighty pachyderms alike, just as it is so to the community. The primary task of a Vava was to lend its pent-up waters for the cultivation of paddy. The mountain massif, central within the island, peaks at around 8,000 feet and fosters the rain-providing monsoonal winds to blow across unevenly, thereby 7 varied rain patterns over the island. 3/4 of the island is within the dry zone, and here much of the precipitation occurs between the months of September and January. It is this seasonal abundance that the ancients harnessed for the filling of Vavas. Many were the ways that they employed, and each is an engineering marvel in its own way. This is the story of a few grand highlights of that ancient Vapi civilization of Sri Lanka. Unlike today, the ancient engineers did not dam a river across in order to divert the water. And we see here at Angamedilla that the water intake to the Parakrama Samudra is a construction that dates back to the 4th century AD. A side canal cut into the bank of the river conducts the flooding waters. That in turn feeds the 135 million cubic meter capacity of the Parakrama Samudra. In order to ensure a perennial feeder canal for this vast vava, a weir obliquely is set into the river. This method the ancient engineers called Riddhi Bandilla. It allows a mighty flood to flow over the short weir along with its load of silt, and only the fluid is harnessed but not its force. We see the same device here in Minipe, a 5th century edifice that diverts the waters of the river Mahavali. There are remains of a diversion across Amanganga, just above Angamedilla, the construction that dates back to the 1st century AD. The remains here hint of an embankment 300 feet long and 40 feet wide, constructed of solid blocks of stones braced by chunky wooden columns sunk into the bedrock. Flanking this section are 2 earthen embankments that funnel a 4,000 feet wide river into this gap for the purpose of feeding 4 of the largest vavas in Sri Lanka: Minneria, Giritale, Kaudula and Kantale, the furthest being 54.5 miles away. Yet another ingenious feat of the ancient engineers is the construction of earthen embankments on large water bodies. These carefully laid dress stones not only prevent the wave action on the embankment, but it is cleverly laid to dissipate the forces of the wave as well, thereby safeguarding the bund. This earthen embankment, the largest in the world until Gatun Dam surpassed it in 1912, was built during the reign of King Parakramabahu the Great in 1153 AD. This 13.6 kilometer and 40 feet high dam has a volume of 4.6 million cubic meters of compacted earth, a task involving 100 million man-days. These ruins bespeak of yet another record, the world's tallest earthen bund, built in 465 AD. It then stood at 34 meters. This was only possible if the ancient engineers had mastered the art of releasing the impounded water across the bund. Otherwise, the sheer pressure of the water's height would blast the water, releasing the pressure on the bund like a cork. The ancient device that allows the controlled release of impounded water of a vava is called bisokotua. Long before the Western world found the valve pit, our ancient engineers not only invented it, but had mastered it even before the Christian era. This rectangular device, the bisokotua, is set within the bund, with a projection leading into the water, which is entirely built with interlocking dressed stones. The interior of this structure comprises an open chamber built of tightly packed brick and lined with glazed rock slabs. The water is tunneled in through one face of the device, which is then released into a rectangular chamber and released out again through a separate tunnel. Sliding wooden gates set within the open chamber control the water's release, whilst dissipating the pressure and other hydraulic forces and effects that could be harmful to the bund and the structure. Released water from a sluice of Kalavava flowing into UDULA that was excavated in the 5th century AD. Its course winds its way 54 miles almost over flat terrain at a gradient of no more than 6 inches to a mile. And it's a baffling story, particularly when they didn't possess a tool such as a theodolite. What did they then have? That is a mystery yet to unfold. There is evidence that this UDULA was treated as an elongated vava, for there were 66 satellite vavas feeding along its passage. And the entire right bank was once set aside as a protected forest, a catchment forest. The ancient engineers were not only skilled at constructing complex irrigation works such as the Vapi, but they were equally skilled at preserving the system in its totality. One key feature of that guardianship was to preserve the catchment forest of a Vapi. The ancients knew the beneficial role of a healthy forest cover for the sustenance of a Vapi. The forest breaks the force of the rain and prevents eroding runoff, retards silting, enhances groundwater penetration, feeds springs, and recharges underground aquifers, and also provides shelter to the birds and the beasts, thus preserving the diversity of life. The ancient engineers fervently believed that the catchment forest is a part and parcel of the Vapi, and the abuse of it would only cause the death of a Vapi. Rituals rather than rules held the system together and made it perform at its healthiest. Here, the community would seasonally gather as one in thanksgiving to the entire system that fed and nourished them. Collectively, they met to decide, to regulate, and to work for the upkeep and the betterment of the whole system that surrounds the Vapi. The Vapi is not about an expanse of water, nor is it about the volume it impounds. The Vapi is about a system governed by the principle of trusteeship of Earth's resources. The Vapi is a culture that nourishes a civilization. The Vapi is ancient yet ingenious, and above all, indigenous to this island nation. O great King, the birds of the air and the beasts have equal right to live and move about in any part of the land as thou. The land belongs to the people and all living beings. Thou art only the guardian of it. Arhat Mahinda, in a sermon preached to King Devanam Piyatissa in the 3rd century BCE.